Once you see that little button right here that looks like a Wi-Fi signal, that's the indication that it's recording at that point. Well, looks like we can start. Welcome to the fall 2025 semester, folks. If this is your first semester, welcome to ISU. Otherwise, welcome back to another semester. Well, again, today is not going to be do a whole lot of statistics kind of day. I do have notes down below here, so we might get started on an example or possibly two. It's more just about getting used to the course materials, the Canvas page, run through some items on the syllabus, and see how the homework platform, MyStats Lab, and the online textbook all work together. But before we jump into all that kind of stuff, any questions at the moment, folks? Okay, let's get started. So first thing I want to point out is a lot of the stuff that's in these black boxes have been written by ISU. If you read them already in one class, it's the same statements in the other classes. There's an interesting kind of a legal lease type of statement that they wrote out here, but good to read at least once or skim through. And if you're having trouble with Canvas, this is their support page right here. You can always just email me as well. I'll be happy to help out. I'm learning it as well. So pretty much every class period, I'm just going to be pointed to the right portion of the Canvas webpage. So everything pretty much goes right through here. If you're looking into, say, what did we do the last class period, you can click on this button under the recorded lectures. Right now, it's just going to point you towards an empty YouTube playlist. And by the way, it looks like it takes about 24 hours these days for the videos to actually show up there. Hopefully that gets a little bit quicker, but that's just what it said last time I tried to do it on YouTube's end. I have some optional reading down below. And each time you do come to class, it's a good idea to be prepared with either downloading the sections we're going to be working on. If you're a more tactile person, you might decide to have them printed off, anything along those lines. I'll always indicate on the actual date what we're working on at any given time. So right now there's a reading assignment and a due date. That's about the homework system. So we'll explain that a little bit further. And the notes that we would be working on today. If we weren't talking about the syllabus, we'd be opening this up right now, just getting working on it. So this one comes in as a blank PDF. The documents here are blank as well, but this one will change. As we start to do the class and we fill out those notes, finishing the lecture there, I'll record my solutions here, so I'm overwriting this file a lot with what we actually did in class. And that's another way to determine what did we do last class and that kind of stuff. So everything's going to be pretty much, you might have this closed off and just come back here as you need the files. Everything is just going to be going to the right date, the right week that we're in for the current course. A lot of pertinent, important dates are in here as well. For example, a week away from today, we get our first holiday, so that's terrific, Labor Day. We have an exam coming up. This is going to be Monday, September 22nd. And other interesting due dates like midterm week. There's no specific midterm. We'll just report what your grade is as the end of that week. And so everything goes through Canvas, and I guess we're going to start here first on the syllabus. Any questions, comments, or concerns at the moment? Okay, so back to the syllabus, or to it in the first place. Let me open the Word file in case we need to edit it. A lot of this information you probably already know. You're, for example, in the right place and time, so you know this information here. We're mainly going to just skim through some of the major parts and add some comments to it. So if you ever have trouble getting onto the Canvas website, it's this right here, although I wonder how helpful this is because this syllabus is only on the Canvas website. So if you're having trouble getting to the Canvas website, see me after class and I can give some helpful advice or look up some materials. Also, if you ever need to contact me, you can reach me by phone, text, that kind of stuff. It takes me a while to get to this and it's usually silenced. But the other way to get a hold of me is through my ISU email address here. I'm pretty responsive on this email unless I'm in class. On Mondays, I have a class that starts at 6 o'clock. So there's probably a period where you might have sent out an email, but I just can't have the chance to get back to it. But I'm majorly looking at the email right when I get up for the day, prepare for the course, and leave for campus. You can email me at any time whatsoever. So if you email me after class, I may not get to it. We go pretty late, almost 9 o'clock. But the first thing I do at 7 a.m. on Tuesday is going to be just to go through my emails and respond to each and every one. So this is our major point of contact. You can send me anything to this email, a question about the course, a question about a homework problem, anything along those lines, I'll be happy to work with. It's a tricky one to spell out because a lot of people are probably going to write SON the first time you send out an email. I don't have any clue who that person is. So it might be safe to just copy and paste this into the browser or into the Gmail client or whichever thing you're using to send out emails. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. And next piece of information, we'll come back to this, is the textbook is going to be through an online textbook. This is going to be a couple ways to obtain, whether you are maintained in the ISV book bundle or you've opted out. They'll still be through the online edition, through the homework platform known as MyLab. Actually, its full name is MyLab Statistics. We'll get a revision put in after class. Already a first revision, but it's a living document, so we'll make these changes as we have to. Anytime I have to revise something, I always give a heads up right here like this, so that a change has been made. And I put an extra note here to say it's revised, so anything in red is something that we had to correct or just add more descriptions like that. This course is a tricky course. We're doing statistical methods, honest inferential statistics. And so we do have to have access to some certain technology. This is probably the biggest buy-in for the class, the TI 84 Plus calculator. You can get these used. They're the kind of calculator that just lives forever. They don't break too easily. So if you find a cheap used version, Facebook Marketplace, Amazon.com, those are usually a great calculator to work with. If you are pretty tech savvy and you have another calculator that you would like to use, say, for example, a Casio calculator along those lines, you're welcome to use those as well. They're oftentimes a little bit cheaper. But I found that these are so widespread that this is the easiest one to demonstrate in class. So if you feel like you're rusty with calculators, you might want to get this version just to make the course a little bit easier. If you're using a Casio calculator, you might also want to let me know, either by email, maybe after class, which calculator that you have or that you intend to possibly buy. So that way I can let you know if it's got everything it needs to actually be used for the class. For example, it sucks to buy a $40 Casio calculator just to learn it can't be used in chapter 12. It's missing statistical features. The way I'll use the calculator in this class is every day we need one. I haven't actually loaded this up yet. Let me see if it works on Windows 11. I'll go to this emulated calculator here. This is actually the wrong one. Let me open the TI-84 Plus. So this is the calculator we're going to demonstrate. Every single time you have to use this calculator, no matter how basic or how convoluted, will be done in this way. I'll be clicking the buttons with the red dot. So if you bring the calculator to class, you can follow along and start practicing early before you do it on a homework assignment, before you have to do it on an exam, for example. So there's lots of different versions of the TI-84 Plus. Some of them have an LCD screen, USB charging cables, those kinds of things. If it's a TI-84 Plus, it'll do the job. Some of the screens might look slightly different, but it's all going to be 100% compatible. Well, any questions or comments, folks, about the calculator requirement? Okay, I realize it's back to school season. These things typically cost about $100, which is a lot of money on this particular day in August. As far as the calculator goes, let me see if I put this note here on the exam. I did say the calculator is required on exams, but likely for exam 1, I don't think we'll be so far into the content that we'll directly need that first calculator. So if it's going to take you some time to get that calculator, you should be okay if you have it ready to go before exam 2. The sooner is the better, since once we're in chapters 4 and 5, we're going to be using the calculator quite a bit already, more so chapter 5 rather than chapter 4. So it's good to have it all ready so you're practicing it ahead of the exam itself. Again, everything we do on the calculator is going to be demonstrated in the way we showed. That means it's also going to be recorded. But if you're using the calculator for homework and anything goes wrong at any point, don't hesitate to reach out. If this was a real calculator, you could even just take a cell phone picture of your readout, whatever the error is, send it to my ISU email up here. I'll be happy to work with you in that way. So even if you're taking pictures of things you've written down, your calculator, malfunction, error code, stuff like that, I'm happy to help out in those ways. So that's probably the bigger thing to talk about. Getting the calculator squared away as early as financially possible is always a good idea for this class. That way, by the time we're getting further in, say around chapter 5, you don't feel like you're falling behind, even though you're doing everything to keep up in class. Okay, sorry for the rapid scrolling up and down. I'm going to leave this information to your reading. This is kind of boring unless you already are going through the course to know what the objectives are. And we'll be talking about the objectives in our start of chapter 1. We'll say what statistics is all about, what we're trying to achieve on our very first example. So we'll be talking about these things in an indirect way. Well, I'll come back to this portion right here, since this is going to be some of the major things we want to talk about today, getting started with the online homework platform and accessing the textbook. But the idea is the homework is going to be posted essentially on a chapter by chapter basis or on a section by section basis. So for example, let's go to our day by day syllabus. I intend to finish chapter 1 on Thursday. It's a good sized chapter, but kind of quick. That means the due date for the first homework assignment in my lab statistics will be a week away from Thursday. So there's going to be a 1 week turnaround. That's why I have a due date posted of September 4th here, where it says read all of chapter 4. This is just saying the homework set in my lab statistics associated with chapter 1 is to do September 4th. If we take more time in chapter 1, that's totally okay. We'll take as much time as we need to get through these concepts. So if you have questions, even if it's a lot of questions, don't hesitate to throw them out there, either during class, at the start of class, that kind of stuff. So if we finish chapter 1, say the Wednesday after our Labor Day holiday, what day is that? It's like the 3rd of September. That means chapter 1 is going to be due a week away, the 10th of September. This gives you a week to really work on those things, get a chance to ask questions, talk about during office hours and those kinds of things. And so that's going to be our pattern for every single one of these chapters. Chapter 2 is a little bit longer. It'll be the same for each one of these sections, section 2.1, 2.2, and so on. So that's essentially how the course is going to proceed with the homework. The homework is not meant to be really a whole huge time commitment. And if you look at the breakdown, I do have homework at 20%, quizzes at 10%, and the examinations for the rest. They require the final to be 30% for this course. I would say the quizzes should take maybe close to the same amount of time as the homework is going to take as well. So let's turn over to talking about the quizzes for the moment. Any questions so far about the homework or otherwise? Okay, so this is kind of the way the philosophy of this course is designed. We do the reading. It's a good idea to do the reading before you come to class, but I realize this is a night class. It may be hard to get to the reading right before class, but anything you could do to get into that textbook, even if you just skimmed it a bit, is always going to make a big impact. There's lots to say about chapter 1 and every single chapter of this course. It's impossible for me to distill every single nuance and idea into the lecture notes. We try our best, but this is where the full set of information is. And we just go through the main parts when we go through the lecture notes. So reading is going to help you out quite a lot. Then after the lecture, it's a good idea to start doing the MyLab homework. So that's where you're just kind of playing with these ideas that we just learned. It's going to be pretty basic in the sense that I give unlimited tries on the problem. It's more about just refamiliarizing with the content. It's not designed to punish you. If you spend time and get through the questions, people get this pretty much maxed out. Then the thing that's kind of dissatisfying about an online homework system like MyLab is it's on a web browser, maybe on your tablet. You can even get it to work on your phone, but I'd say it's better on a tablet or a laptop or a computer. Things that are done on a tablet or a cell phone don't translate very well to exams, unfortunately. So sometimes there's a big disconnect going from the actual homework on MyLab statistics online versus doing a paper exam. And that's what can make a course pretty hard. And that's what the quizzes are all about here. The idea about these quizzes is that they're meant to be honest to goodness exam questions themselves. It's like a preview of what would a good exam question look like from chapter one. I write it down as just one problem. It's not meant to be long because it competes for time here. So this is not meant to be a long quiz, usually just one problem. I'll give you another week due date, so 1 week to turn around on finishing the quiz. And I'll be marking up your quizzes, giving feedback on it, as if it was a real exam problem. I do grade them generously because I think of quizzes as being fundamentally kind of a participation credit. So the idea for every quiz is, if you try, you put your name on it, you turned it in, that kind of thing, you got 5 points for participating. Sorry about the spelling, probably my nerves. I'm just going to go with that for spelling of participating. So if you just turn in your quiz, you get 5 points immediately, and then you get 5 points for correctness. So each quiz is going to be worth 10 points exactly. And I realize for a lot of this content, you might have just seen the problem for the first time. If you're really close, you just made a couple small errors, you might get 8 or 10 points out of the 10. If you missed a lot of things, you might get on the lower end, maybe 6 or 7 points. If everything is off, then, well, you'll get 5 points out of 10. Not the end of the world. Quizzes are only 10% of the course. And I will be dropping the lowest 2 quiz grades at the end of the semester as well. Usually I have an extra credit opportunity that goes along with it for doing a course evaluation, bumping that up to dropping 3 quizzes out of the entire set. We'll have anywhere between 12 to 14 quizzes altogether. So I'll grade these quizzes carefully. I encourage you to work on them carefully as well. You're allowed to work in groups. You have to write up your own solutions. So even though they're called quizzes, they are a take-home quiz. It's like a paper version of the homework assignment to show you what a real exam question will look like. And I myself will be providing a good amount of feedback on every one of those quizzes. I'll look at them carefully, mark them up, and return them back to you. I encourage you to look at that feedback really carefully. It's easy to get in the habit of just kind of filing them away. It sucks sometimes to look at feedback because it's like you're doing the homework set twice. But if it's a problem that could be similar to an exam problem, looking at this feedback again, it's just like you're practicing for the exam as well. So think of the homework as kind of a dress rehearsal. You're just getting used to the concepts. This is real practice for the actual exams, all right. I'm not going to give the verbatim same questions, but the questions are very, very similar in spirit. So you'll see the same kind of ideas, the same formatting and how I ask the questions, and so on. Then you'll go to do the exams, and these are 70-minute exams. I'm not going to make them too long. They'll be between 4 to 5 questions, similar to the quiz problems. And I'll be also posting for every exam additional practice problems as well. So it'll give you a really good idea of what kind of questions can be asked on a real exam. So essentially, if you're doing the reading, the homework is going to make a lot more sense. The quizzes should be pretty easy at that point. Any questions you have, you can ask me, ask a fellow student. If you are doing these at a really high level, there's a strong correlation between your quiz grade and how well you're going to do on your exams. So nailing this part of the course just means exams aren't meant to go beyond what you did in the homework or the quiz. It's at the same kind of level. Everything is practiced to get you through this material here. The final exam also sounds pretty scary, but if you're scoring well on exams 1 through 3, the final exam does not drop the student's grade on average. And if I did write a really hard final exam and everyone's average grade in the class went down like 5%, that's the indication to me that I might curve the final exam. This is the only exam that I would ever curve in the semester, just because it's not meant to be something that just destroys you going from a B to an F kind of situation. It's just a formality pretty much, kind of like a capstone project that you have to do by sitting in on a 2-hour exam. Sorry about that part, but we'll all get through it together. So those are the major features of the course, how you get your credit through each component. Only thing we haven't talked much about is the homework so far. But any questions at the moment, folks? Okay, I'll come back to this kind of information, talking a little bit more about the exams and such as we get closer to the exam. Talking about everything line by line is just too much of an information overload on day one. Other things you'd want to take a look at is the schedule. The firm dates are the actual examinations themselves, exam 1, 2, and 3. And I have to apologize about this part. So the person who determines the final exam schedule for Idaho State University is the registrar's office down in Pocatello. And because we're a night class, we are on the 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. slot, Monday, December 15th. It's brutal, but it's one of the reasons I don't try to write a hard final exam. I sometimes do curve it. It's something we'll get to together. And if this is an impossible time for you, I sometimes do make arrangements for an earlier exam window so that I don't want you to feel like you're testing at your worst. This is not an easy time to test at. So the exam dates are firm. Everything else in the schedule is in flux. Sometimes we might take a little bit extra time on a particular section, for example. Ahead of a particular exam, if people have questions relative to reviewing on exam 1, I take those questions before that class. So we might have spent extra time doing something additional before an exam on these dates here, here, and here. But this is pretty much the overall goal for the course. This takes us through descriptive statistics and our major goal of inferential statistics. For the reading down below, I know there's a lot. This is everything written by the university itself. Some things are really important accessibility statements. Other things are statements on services as an ISU student you already have access to, you've essentially paid for and should be aware of. Other things are hugely important federal laws. So if you've read all this kind of stuff before, it's the same kind of stuff, but this is all new. You might want to do a more careful reading of these kinds of things. For example, this is relative to every single one of your classes at ISU. Different colleges have different emails right here, but you should also know if something just doesn't seem right in your class, something just doesn't seem fair, or so on along those lines. You have student rights, and there's always a process for academic complaints and grievances. And this is the math department statement on that kind of information. So you should look for those kinds of statements in your other classes if you ever feel like just something isn't quite right with how the class is proceeding. But that's our whole syllabus. It's the only thing we really haven't talked about so far. So that's going to be our next objective. Talk about the so-called MyLab statistics and accessing your digital copy of the textbook. Any questions, comments, or concerns at the moment? Okay, I do have a revision here, so let me give myself a personal note.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
So where it says office hours from 4:15 to 5:15, that's where it's gonna be available.
Exactly.
In person?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually skipped this line. Thanks for spotting that. Yeah, these are going to be completely open walk-in office hours. And I actually had this updated just today. Did this on my other syllabus. It's going to be in this classroom. So nothing too weird to have to figure out about that. I'll be here 4:15, 5:15 every Monday through Thursday. If there's ever a reason I had to interrupt these office hours, and that would be very rare, I would give you an email heads up so you don't just drive here and come into an empty classroom. So I'll always be available for any kind of thing you might want to ask about. It could be working with a calculator. It could be extra help on MyLab statistics. You might be stuck on a quiz problem, anything along those lines. I'll just be here, bored, and happy to help. Other questions so far? Okay, and sorry for this weird thing that got changed just today. They only gave me the email right before I started class, so I didn't have a time to get a revision in on that. So office hours, not clear over there. They'll be in the actual classroom itself. Well, let's pause the syllabus for a moment. We can come back to it if anyone has any additional questions. And never hesitate to interject. Sometimes questions just pop in randomly, maybe a few moments after I call for questions. It's never rude to interject and just come back to a certain topic, especially on day one. I think I talk fast on day one. So if it sounds like a word salad, I'm happy to rewind and clarify. So this is the tricky part of the course. Well, not super tricky, but it's a little bit confusing on day one. ISU has this new program. It's, I believe, a year old now called ISU Book Bundle. Some people are opted in because they opt you in by default. That's already an ethics thing you might wonder about. What it does is it takes your credits and decides to charge you per credit for your textbooks. Some classes, the textbooks are quite costly, and so being in the book bundle is beneficial. Other classes might have free textbooks, and so you're paying for nothing. Everyone has to do a kind of calculation of, is staying in the book bundle saving me money, or is it costing me money? That can be kind of confusing. For this class, if you decide to opt out of the book bundle, access to this link here where we'll do the homework, my lab statistics, and the online textbook costs $124 for the single term, which is all you would need. So $125 altogether. So that's a calculation that you want to keep in mind. And getting registered for my lab statistics is slightly different. If you did opt out, you'd go through this bottom link here, Access Pearson. And really, this should be our major goal before we come back on Wednesday. This is not official homework assignment. But if you're registered for My Lab Statistics, either through one of these two links, before you come back on Wednesday's class, I'd say you're in good shape, caught up for the course. So what everyone needs to do is click on this link over here, ISU Book Bundle. You'll have an option once you start clicking through there to say, are you in the book bundle, or if you're not. If you're not, you should just click no. And then you go through the lower link, Access Pearson. This is where you would buy access to the online textbook, My Lab Statistics, individually. And if you stayed in the book bundle, you would still be in this link right here. Again, that's already kind of confusing in my opinion. Everyone wants to go through the ISU book bundle to start. If I click on it here, it might look a little bit different on my end. It takes a while for these things to load up. For me, it says launch courseware. Let me move that tool over here. You might see something slightly different. Anyone seeing like a broken page or just different materials here? This is exactly what you see as well. That's a good sign that things are working then. So if this is what you're seeing, then you're in good shape. This is our textbook. Here it looks like it's a hard copy, but this exact hard copy has been duplicated as a digital version. What you want to do next is just click on Launch Courseware. This is where it gets a little bit confusing for me because I don't have an exact view of what it could look like on you on your end. For you, there might be a link right here that says, click to get registered and that kind of thing. They wouldn't have anything along those lines so far?
Yeah. Your account.
Gotcha. So you'd want to click on link your accounts on there. This is what the people sent me, getting started with ISU Canvas for students. Let me see if I could track these instructions with what you were saying. Oh, no, not that one. My Lab Statistics student registration. So it says, get your Pearson account, link your student Canvas and Pearson accounts. Here's where it gets vague. In some cases, your Pearson account might automatically be linked for you. If prompted, select an access option. You shouldn't need this if you're in the book bundle. This has already been taken care of for you. If you've gone out of the book bundle, or really just anybody, you can always click on temporary access. This is 2 weeks temporary access, and the system just starts to resolve who's in the book bundle, who's not. But even if you're not in ISU's book bundle, every student has the 2 weeks temporary access without payment. So you should see something that looks like that. I wish they showed these screenshots of what that might look like. How's it looking so far on your end if you're working through it?
Good. The one who did like, says new to Pearson, create an account.
That sounds right, yeah. You might need to create an account potentially. Anyone else get further than the account creation page? Awesome. What did it look like for you? Does it more just something like this?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So your next goal is after you create your account, you may or may not have had to create one. You'll see a page that looks like this. So that's why this is kind of semi-homework. This is the frustrating part of the class. Yeah, go ahead. Gotcha. I think that there's a chance they make you feel like it's mandatory. And just to be fully ethical with you on that question, the book bundle is absolutely not mandatory. So if you feel like opting out is a better bargain on your end, here's what I would do. Let me remind myself of these steps. Yeah, they're probably busy and it's probably not even in their best financial interest to say how to act to leave that system, since that's how they get paid in the first place. That's why it becomes this kind of weird ethical issue. But let's look at this directly as well once I find out how to get to ISU. Oh geez, hang on, I'm having some trouble looking this up.
I opted out into the bundle with those little tiles. Oh,
Let me go to here. And this is the last time I looked at this, how you usually opt out. Let me find the article. Don't know why I put book in all caps. Okay. Sorry, I didn't quite anticipate this question. Okay, so if you want to opt out of the book bundle, this is the web address you want to go to. Let's put this on the actual Canvas course. I'll call this external URL, book bundle opt out process. They seem to make this hard to find. So I have it now available as a link down below here. If you refresh your Canvas page, it should show up. It is not for this course. Yeah. You should be able to, yeah. And you should be also able to do it just through this link right here. One thing that's kind of awful about this book bundle is my understanding of it, unless it was changed very recently, is it's kind of an all or nothing thing. So if you try to opt out of just one specific class, that means globally you're opting out of all of your classes. Again, it seems like just a weird. Mhm. I see, yeah, gotcha. And yeah, from this article here, you should be able to eventually find something that says, or a button or a link that says get temporary access at some point, whether you're in the book bundle or not. Thanks for the information about that. That's really educated for me. It's one thing that's confusing about all this is it's impossible to see this from the student side. Possibly, yeah. And they should absolutely ethically make that a viable option. So keep calling them, keep emailing them. It's really their job. Other questions or comments about where we're at so far? Anyone get beyond to others get beyond to seeing this link here? Okay,
I got you.
awesome. Glad to hear that. So once you get to here, it's a matter of clicking this button. Then once again, your screen might be slightly different. Here's what it looks like on mine, but I have to click View Student Home, and I'm taken here. You might have a screen right in the middle where you have to select the Math 1153 statistical reading. It could look like a card, for example, that you click to get into this page here. Yeah, and it's kind of a weird way to run a class, right? It feels like we're doing tech support more than statistics so far. Are people able to get to this page so far? Awesome. That means you made it in. So this is finally my lab supposed to say statistics here, but I guess they're trying to get this figured out. It says MyLab Math, you're still in the right class. Major thing you're looking for is Math 1153P, Section 11. It says that up at the top somewhere. I'm supposedly on the student view, although your view might be slightly different. If you see this on the top, you're in the right place. So I don't want to talk about every single thing inside the system right away. This is day one. Again, that could be information overload. Major things I just want to point you at is how to open the textbook and just briefly how to work the homework assignments. We'll be looking at this a little bit more, giving more demonstrations since this is a major part of the course on how this works as we go forward. So let's imagine we came back on Wednesday, or maybe it's Wednesday morning, and you are waiting for me to click on the right thing. You're waiting for a class to get started. The page is going to be scrolled to about here. Our goal is to do chapter 1 statistics, and it says, read all of chapter 1. Again, this is the understanding that this is a night class on a satellite campus for non-traditional students primarily. So anything you can do to just see what chapter 1 is all about is extremely helpful. Even if you're just skimming through, that's going to be worth your while. If you can work it into your schedule, building a firm routine on a class-by-class basis to do the readings, that makes just the lectures a little bit more effective. The things I would be saying don't sound entirely new. The lecture is going to have a lot more traction on your mind for every bit of pre-reading you're able to do before class starts. But to do all that, you have to go right over here, e-text contents. And I feel like they could have designed these links a little bit better, but it's a few clicking. Click on this, and it pops out a kind of index, chapter by chapter. I would click on chapter 1, that's where we're working in. And then you'd hope the book popped out by now, but it hasn't. There's a whole bunch of other links right here. None of this is helpful unless you're about to do the homework. You want to click on eText resources. They put it on the very bottom for some unknown reason. So click on this right by the very bottom green arrow. And finally, it loads the ebook. It says ebook 2, Pearson Plus. There are a lot of weird features in this thing this semester. So let me just show you what some of the things are. First, looks like it takes us to the right page, but if you're not sure, you probably want to click on table of contents. This is where I would have hoped they gave us a link to, the direct table of contents. We're in chapter 1, so we're in the right place, the very first part, the chapter opener. So if you're doing the reading for the class, pretty much you're just scrolling through here, reading these yourself. You can pair this with an audio book, so connect headphones if that works a little bit better. Clicking right takes you to page 2, and so on. This is the reading. I have to be honest, it's pretty dry stuff. If you look on page 1, it tells us statistics gets no respect, and it goes off to say, but statistics is fun. I think that's a kind of a hard sell. I think most people are in statistics mainly because your core program just requires it. It'll take a lot of work for me to prove to you that statistics is fun. But I think the funnest thing about getting through the course is when you're on, say, week 13, week 14, week 15, the ideas start to make sense. That's when it's fun. Reading the book is not fun. It is dry reading. Try to do it as academically minded as possible. It's not going to be the most exciting stuff. You're paying attention to a lot of the major ideas. Things in bold are major definitions to work around. If you have a really good, clear mind, you might be reading this in a 40-minute chunk. But it's not a bad idea to break this up. Read a page or two, take a break, maybe do something else, go to the next couple pages and just work through it. It wouldn't be a bad idea to just look through the major structures of this. What is statistics? Take a look at some of the information here, skip to what is data, look at some of the information here, and so on. Skip to what is variables, look at some of the information here. This one is on multiple pages, so you'll have to click the right arrow a lot. Again, the more you can read this, the more the lectures are going to make sense. It is very hard sometimes to read this word for word, every single line on this, but it is helpful, unfortunately. The good news about this textbook is has actual real prose. It's not just definition, example. There's a lot of color that they put into it. Other things you might want to pay a lot of attention to, particularly you want to get to just how does this all work? Maybe you're studying for exam, studying for a quiz, is go to the examples. The examples are going to give you a particular question, and usually this format will show you how to answer it, these kinds of things. But the best way to read the examples is scroll to about this part. Read the question, are the variables categorical or quantitative? Include units where appropriate and describe the why of this investigation. You'd probably be doing this example maybe after you did the homework, maybe after you did the quiz, before you, or as part of your studying for the exam itself. The best way to read this example is to not read the whole thing. Stop right here at the question, get out some paper and just solve it the best you can. There's probably going to be blanks. It's really frustrating. And then just take a peek to see how close you are, see what you might miss. In other words, the best way to really read this book is actively. The pencil out, a pen, some scratch paper, that kind of stuff. And really think of the question as a really honest question that you're trying to solve yourself before doing the reading. The benefit of this kind of stuff is, again, we can't put in paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of this kind of information into our lectures. We would never get anywhere. Our lectures have to get right to the meat. This is what the lecture looks like. When we open the lecture notes, I open it as a Word document to make editing easier. It's the same exact notes as chapter 1. Stat starts here as a PDF. If you want a Word document, I make that an option as well. And I put in just the very core ideas. So a lot of the fluff has fallen off. Sometimes this is kind of hard to read. I put in a tremendous amount of white space because this is for us to fill out. And some people do pretty good just following along these lecture notes. But eventually the course does get a little bit harder. And any pre-reading you might do, again, even if it's skimming what the table of contents are, what the definitions are all about, it helps a lot. Ideally, if you are seeing this the second time is when this information starts to make the most sense. It's a lot of words to say. That's what the reading is all about. So when it says read all of chapter 1, what I mean is not everything in there is going to be on the exam, but it all puts it together as one big puzzle. Everything is important in that kind of sense. If you're wondering what's going to be on the exam, look at the lecture notes or the quizzes. Any kind of definition here is part of the exam, essentially. Scrolling through, we'll have ideas of what data is, population versus sample, ideas about variable, categorical versus quantitative. These are the main exam takeaways. And it's the reading that just kind of helps it make sense and puts it all together. We'll be doing our best in class as well, but again, not all the textbook can be conveyed here on the notes themselves. That took a long time to say, but that's how you open your textbook. The recap is, the ICU book bundle link should work for everyone. You'll probably possibly be using the, oh geez, I have too many things open. You might possibly be using the 2-week free access. If that access runs out, you'd use this link down here to purchase that access later on. Once you get loaded into the course, the e-text is over here. One of the things we would talk about is how to do the homework assignments. I don't want to talk about it all day today, so we'll just look at it briefly and talk about it a little bit more on Wednesday and Thursday. But any questions whatsoever, folks, about using the textbook? Okay, there's this new feature as well. I guess we kind of have to talk about it because it's there. This little double dot thing looks like an eyeball looking at you is the AI study tool. I don't know how good this is going to be, but this is what you can do with it. Write a study quiz for chapter 1 with 4 problems of the major takeaways. You could write something along those lines for essentially any chapter or any section. And your mileage may vary. Everyone's going to get a different response from this every single time. It may be good, it may be bad, but if you're comfortable with doing this kind of thing, it's a built-in tool. Let's see what it says. Why might a university choose a cluster sample when determining the average starting salary of its graduates? It's a good question, but again, the trouble with this kind of question is it's not part of the lecture notes. Not every single element of the textbook is going to make it as an exam question. That would be an extremely long exam. So using the AI tool here already doesn't look like it's the best tool. You might be spending a lot of time on things that may not be as important as to even make it on the exam. This one's not a good question. That's the frustrating thing about using these kinds of tools. Sometimes they're effective. I think using it right in your textbook is just too wide open. It doesn't really know what you're studying primarily to give you a good access to. But if it's a tool you're comfortable using, it is built in. I thought we should just take a look at it just as an option. But major thing you'll be doing is after looking at the homework, you'll come to class, see how the lecture goes. What I would encourage you to do is, depending on the type of person you are, when we come back on Wednesday, we may not finish these notes in its entirety. Some people might think that's okay. I'm going to go into the system already and just answer the questions that I know I can answer. Other people might feel weird about that. You're going to run into a question that we just haven't covered. Some people really, really hate that. So the best practice is it's good to do your homework as soon as possible. In my lab statistics, the sooner you do it, the easier it is, the more sense it's going to make. But if you're the kind of person who would rather wait till this is completely done, that's what the due date is all about right here. Once we complete the very last example on those notes, the due date will be a 1 week return on when the homework assignment is due. And that's my way to indicate to you this is a good time to look into the problems now because we've completed all the content. So back to the whole homework system. It's pretty basic. Click on assignments. Your assignments and due dates are going to be posted here. My due dates are all about pacing in the course. If you keep up with the due dates, you're doing really well with keeping up with the material in the class. It's going to make studying for the exams a lot easier. But if life gets ahead of you, and if you fall behind on the due dates, you can still come back in here and complete this for full credit. So that's kind of dangerous. You don't want to leave a whole bunch of assignments for later. That makes studying way harder than it has to be. But it's something that you can always come back to. In other words, if we're here studying for exam 1, that's the wrong spot. If we're on the syllabus, I guess I closed it. Studying for exam 1, and you haven't finished off these assignments, that's still a good thing to go back and do to get that extra credit and the extra practice. So all you do is click on the link. And these are the assignment questions. You can click on a question individually or just click on start. It's completely up to you. It has to load in. It's kind of weird when your homework loads, but here it is. I'm keeping my questions kind of minimal per section, per chapter, because I don't want it to compete too much with the quizzes. And again, it's just an overall review of what you've just looked into. You do have infinite tries on this, which is dangerous. The reason for that is I don't want to make this be something that punishes you. It's worth 20% of your grade. It's just a way to recap. If you click on this and just by brute force check and find the right answer, you're probably not going to get very much benefit out of this. So that's the dangerous part on this. Answer it as honestly as you can. If you get it wrong, I'm going to get it wrong on purpose, or this is just lucky. That was just lucky. Let me try again. If you get it wrong, and you make a mistake, that's okay. It gives you some hints, some reminders. Think about the question and just try again. Final check on that one. They said fantastic. Now I'm assuming that I read the question carefully. I carefully looked at the responses and selected the correct one. And then I was happy with the answer. So you'd probably be spending anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes, probably closer to the 5 minutes per question on these. If it's ultra familiar, probably just a couple minutes per question is the idea. Another thing I want to mention is sometimes it's not clear why a right answer is right. If that's a question you might have, don't hesitate to ask about it. You can ask it about it to me in email. You can bring it up during class. Could even click this button, Ask My Instructor, right here, and it'll bounce an email to me that I can get back to you on. So that's the homework experience. It's not meant to be a huge competitor for your time. It's not meant to hurt your grade. It's just something that you have to do. And if you're being diligent about it, getting through it, it's going to help a lot with the quizzes and then in turn help you out on getting through the exams. This was a lot of talking so far. Any questions at the moment, folks, with getting into my lab or accessing the text or the homework? Okay, if you're not in the system so far, if there's anything holding you back, that'd be okay. I'd say see me after class or send me an email at any time. If you've got it figured out by the time class starts on Wednesday evening, you're right on track. If we still have problems on Wednesday evening, that's okay. We'll get them resolved and finished out. Our course starts a little bit slower because we just have a lot of weird things to get through with the way the technology works in this class. Well, those are the major things I wanted to discuss before we started class today. With the time that we have left, looks like we have 19 minutes. I wanted to spend some time in chapter 1, but I don't think I want to go through this full example here on example 1, mainly because example 1 is another introduction to the course itself. So we're going to do this in full with the full amount of time when we come back fresh on Wednesday after looking at my lab statistics just a little bit more to get a better feel for it. But let's just spend a little bit of time talking about what this is all about. Our goal in statistics is inferential statistics, and there's now a dichotomy. There's a fight between the population and a sample. Not exactly a fight. A better way to say is we're trying to find out everything we possibly can about a population. The population could be, say, all Idahoans, all ISU students, or something more convoluted. It could be objects. It could be things manufactured on a process, maybe things even more abstract than that. Trouble with populations, though, is sometimes they're tricky to work with, they're expensive to work with, or sometimes they're really very big. For example, if one population is all Idahoans, and we have something important we want to learn about them, maybe highest level of education completed, we can't learn that information by directly interviewing every single Idahoan. Maybe the census could, but that's going to cost millions of dollars through federal funding. If we're a small organization trying to learn about a population, we are limited by time, space, and primarily money. What we do is we study the population through a sample. Instead of looking at every single Idahoan, we're trying to use randomization to get a representative sample, maybe just 25 Idahoans, and ask them the same question and find the information. We'll then use the sample to extrapolate back and describe the underlying population. That's really what statistics is all about. We'll describe that in a little bit more detail. Sorry, my voice is giving out. I'm not used to talking yet. We'll describe this in a lot more detail with this small excerpt right here to say just what is going on in this class. What is the difference between these two things? And really, this is the kind of thing that comes back all course. These two ideas. There might be a couple one-offs. Maybe in chapter 4, it might feel like we didn't talk about it much. It's back on chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8, 9, and 12. This is all what statistics is going to be all about. And trying to understand the population through the sample is what we refer to as inferential statistics, which is our major objective of the course. It's tricky, but we have plenty of time to get through all those main concepts. Again, we're going to leave example 1 for when we come back fresh. This is not something I'm going to try to rush through in 10 minutes because it's important. So we'll see it again on Wednesday's class. Any questions at the moment, however, with what we did so far? Just a little bit highlighting. Okay, when we come back next class, I'll just be sitting here. I'm always in class early because my prior class ends right before this one, so I don't go too far. If you have questions, you have ability to get with me during office hours. But there's also informal office hours because you come to class early. Our class starts at 7:30. I'm just sitting here at 7 o'clock. don't hesitate to jump right in. You're not going to be interrupting me. I'm just passing time. So at the start of class, we'll be turned to down here. We'll look at my lab statistics a little bit more, and then just jump right back into these notes. Well, that's all I have for folks today. That's tons of talking. Any last questions or thoughts before we call it a night officially?
Real quick, that one that you were just clicking on,
Was it,
where you were editing that?
oh, right here, yeah.
If I click on that on my end, will I see that?
This, not so far. But thanks for asking about this. Let me show you what I do at the end of every class. I go File, Save. Don't click on the box thing. And convert it back to a PDF just because it's the most compatible format. Then it comes up here and I overwrite this file right here. So that way, when you're coming back in class on Wednesday, you can click on that and see everything we've done today. That's a tricky thing about these classes though, right? I've probably said a million things in this 50 minutes or so far. Hard to retain it all. Yeah, go ahead. These right here? Oh, I got you, these. No, it's more just me walking through the lecture. These you can print out to have on your own or download to your machine.
Okay.
You could fill them out as you go along with the course, but they're your personal notes at that point. Other questions at the moment? Okay, well, have a great evening, folks. Drive safe out there. The road should be good for most of the semester, but you never know in December. So keep in mind, all classes are going to be recorded. If you ever find a day that you'd like to join class, but you can't, I run this Zoom to record lectures, and I'm not opposed to sharing the Zoom link. So if that's every day that makes just sense to you, then I'm happy to help out in that way. And I usually end class this way, closing the live stream. So if you have a